Hello, guys and gals, me Mudahar, and FTX, ladies and gentlemen. What if I told you karma is real? A scumbag has finally been sent to prison. Well, at least sentenced for at least 110 years in prison. Now, for anybody who doesn't know, Sam Bankman-Fried, one of the former CEOs of the third largest crypto exchange in the world, FTX, finally, all charges guilty. All right, 110 years in prison. Now, to remind you, a crypto exchange, for somebody that doesn't know anything about cryptocurrencies, is basically like an exchange where you can trade cryptocurrencies with real money, okay? And sometimes you can buy things like Bitcoin, which is the most well-known cryptocurrency, or you can buy something that's a little less known, like an alternative coin, which doesn't really have as much value other than getting people to believe that they're going to 1,000 times their investment, okay? It's all rife with scams and nonsense. But ladies and gentlemen, Sam Bankman-Fried was thought to be basically the holy savior, the God, the Pathfinder, the Jesus, the Messiah of crypto, being more than just some digital currency. This is something you could potentially buy a real house with one day. Something that could replace the traditional currencies you and I still use. US dollars, rubles, yen, Canadian funny money? One day it could all be digital ones and zeros. But of course, FTX failed like a fucking burning star, okay? To give you an idea, it was basically the domino effect on crack. November 22. Ladies and gentlemen, CoinDesk, one publication, receives this private document that showcases that FTX, the exchange, and Sam's trading firm at the time, Alameda Research, were actually two separate businesses. Now, CoinDesk, back in November, received a scathing report that actually showcased that apparently Sam, who actually ran FTX, also had his hand in another business, another close-by business, although separate, called Alameda Research. This was effectively known as sort of their trading platform, their trading business. That's what it was. But CoinDesk received a document that showcased that the balance sheets of Alameda Research were built on the FTT token. For those of you who don't know what the FTT token is, the FTT token is the token that powers FTX. So for instance, if you wanted to get a discount on trading fees, you could get that FTT token. Did you want higher commissions on referrals? One of those pyramids? That's what it was there for. And of course, if you want some rewards on the side too, there you go. But ladies and gentlemen, the problem is Alameda's balance sheets, or rather a grand majority of them, seem to be built on that FTT token and not actual tangible assets. And this created a problem that we're going to call the leverage problem and possible insolvency. So again, after those concerns kicked in, this domino effect started day after day after day. So one of their chief rivals, and we're talking not just any average rival, like we are talking the Sonic versus Mario of rivals in this situation. Like these people were at each other's throats. CZ, all right, who is one of the heads of Binance, their rival competition, comes out and basically tells people Binance received roughly 2.1 billion USD equivalent in cash, Binance USD and FTT. Due to recent revelations that came to light, we have decided to liquidate any remaining FTT token in our books. So again, this absolutely freaked the fuck out of the community. And this is what happens. When the dominoes start falling, at that point, the whole story is gone out. It's a wildfire that cannot be contained. We will try to do something in a way that minimizes market impact. Dog, liquidating your entire holding is not something that minimizes market impact. He knew what he was doing. Let's be real here. Now, can you blame him for holding on to this worthless token? Absolutely not. And what would happen a day pretty much after is obviously the market would freak out. And then CZ came in literally a couple days later, a day later, and said, "This afternoon, FTX asked for our help." Probably unwillingly. There is a significant liquidity crunch to protect users like you, people that were basically affected because their money was tied up in this big exchange, albeit very insolvent. We had signed a non-binding LOI intending to fully acquire FTX and help cover their liquidity crunch. We will be conducting a full due diligence in the coming days. The thing is, when they did their due diligence, they immediately backed off and did not buy FTX. So again, after this whole kerfuffle, the dominoes kept falling and falling and falling. And so what happened later was Bahamian authorities, their regulators, jumped in 2 days later on the 10th of November and pretty much said, today, the security commissions of the Bahamas took action to freeze assets of FTX digital markets and related parties. The commission also suspended the registration and applied to the Supreme Court of the Bahamas for an appointment of a provisional liquidator of their digital markets. So yeah, they seized it, and this was obviously not good. Again, remember, dominoes. When the dominoes fall, the wildfire spreads, and at one point, that wildfire cannot be contained. Now, November 10th wasn't the point. This happened a few days before anyways. This is just adding more fuel to that fire. So SBF then gets arrested in the Bahamas, and then very shortly after this dude gets extradited to the US government, okay? And at that moment in time, his trial actually begins. Again, SBF was kind of hoping that this wouldn't evolve into the situation, but you have to understand, SBF didn't just scam you and me, the average nobody. He scammed investors. And in the eyes of the US government, you could be a murderer, you could be a goddamn, war criminal. And somehow, ladies and gentlemen, if you manage to piss off the IRS, the SEC, if you manage to piss off people with money, the hammer comes on you harder than anything imaginable, which is exactly what happened to SBF. Now, ever since he was extradited, he pretty much spent the rest of his days in prison. There was a period where he was bailed out on bond for an obscene amount, over $100 million. And then, I shit you not, there was a period of time where even in his trial period, he wanted out because, I shit you not, he needed better internet. Because again, he had poor internet and he had a history with League of Legends. This was speculation. I don't think that he was doing this just to play League. Then again, the mind of somebody like this is truly, you can't really wrap your head around it, okay? This man is screwed. Maybe he's trying to get the last little ounces of freedom he has before ultimately paying for his crimes. And it wasn't just SBF that actually got hit with this stuff too. SBF even brought in a bunch of influencers that had to suffer as well. So inside this district court from the Miami division, this was a class action lawsuit basically highlighting every single tweet that he ever had, but not just every single tweet that he ever had, every time he involved other influencers to be brand ambassadors for FTX. One of the top ones is Diamond Tom Brady, NFL quarterback currently playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who is a brand ambassador for FTX. So, not fun. But of course, he's not the only sports person in here. You've got Stephen Curry. You've also, ladies and gentlemen, no joke, you've got Shaquille O'Neal involved into it. Because of course, Shaq has his pie in almost every single fucking thing imaginable. I'm not even joking. The Golden State Warriors LLC. After they launched their partnership with FTX in 2022, they were also targeted as well. So, of course, tons of brands put their name into this situation, and it was not good for any of them. Because when you promote cryptocurrencies like this, when you promote products like this that could cause serious financial harm without really going into the nitty-gritty of it, this can actually be something that has some serious repercussions. Remember, I don't joke when I look at crypto scams. Usually when you look at any Reddit board associated with a crypto scam, whether it be FTX, whether it be Celsius, whether it be anything, it's always filled after the scam with people who need to call the suicide hotline. And I'm not joking. I'm not putting this to damper any mood. I'm just giving you the grim actual reality of these situations. This is real people losing real tangible money, and once they've lost their life savings, your brain goes in a million different directions. And of course, SBF didn't really care about it. He started making these tweets and flooding the hell out of his accounts just because he was deleting a bunch of tweets at the time, it seemed, and he was filling them up so people could go on Social Blade and not see a deletion, an amount, nothing negative in terms of tweet count, so people wouldn't really look into his previous tweets. But of course, with somebody that has this much scrutiny, obviously they're going to look into it. Bankman-Fried, it was actually even accused that he secretly transferred $4 billion in customer funds from FTX to Alameda without telling anybody. And after Alameda was hit with a series of losses, FTX entities lent more than half of its $16 billion in customer funds, that's your money, to Alameda, with more than $10 billion in loans outstanding. These guys were playing around with your money in the dumbest ways imaginable. This guy wasn't smart, he was just lucky. And honestly, luck will only take you so far. You can't make a mountain out of like shit. Ladies and gentlemen, it will always be shit. FTX was always trash. And unfortunately, and for most people, not this guy, not this clown, for most people, they lost their money, and it was simple as that. There's only so many protections that exist, only so many regulations that exist for this situation. And the thing is, there were three massive problems with this. One, cryptocurrencies, the credibility of it took a massive hit. To understand, FTX falling means that crypto around the board was falling and going into the reds. The people did not actually have any faith in this when one of the largest firms starts breaking down. Then, of course, you had SEC gentlemen and women who looked into this and wanted to actually add more regulations because nobody else needs to be hurt this hard ever again. And of course, there was also a lot of political pressure in terms of this too. There was a lot of donations, I believe, that he made to I believe the Democratic Party at the time too. There was a lot of political power that was slowly being siphoned away because money was being donated to political parties and things were being, I guess you could say, swept under the rug for lack of a better term. And the thing is, at the end of the day, the government couldn't care about this had it not been for the fact that actual investors, serious rich people that you wouldn't find on any list, were actually being hurt because of all this nonsense. And when it comes to honor among thieves, none of that shit exists with the FTX. None of that exists anywhere. His girlfriend, everyone that he worked with, pretty much testified against him and threw him under the bus. And when it came time to take the stand, he had a bunch of charges that were going up against him. So to read it, he got one count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, where what it alleged is Sam Bankman-Fried and others had willfully and knowingly did combine, conspire, confederate, and agree together and with each other to commit wire fraud. It was part of the object of conspiracy that SBF and others knowingly having devised and intending to devise a scheme to artifice, to defraud, and for obtaining money and property by means of false and fraudulent pretenses. So to understand what they're basically saying is SBF agreed with others to defraud FTX customers by misappropriating their deposits and using that to pay expenses and debts of Alameda Research, which again is their crypto hedge fund. And they were basically making the shittiest investments possible on your dime, which is exactly one of the reasons why they were so indebted and effectively became insolvent. They weren't making money, they were pissing it away. Then, of course, you've got wire fraud on customers, you've got conspiracy to commit wire fraud on lenders, and then, of course, wire fraud on lenders. You've got count 5, conspiracy to commit commodities fraud. And then, count 6, conspiracy to commit securities fraud. So again, count 7, conspiracy to commit money laundering. So again, this is not good in any capacity, and if you thought those were enough, they got count 8, conspiracy to defraud the United States and violate campaign finance laws, going back to those donations they made to political parties. And on all of those counts, it seems that SBF is found guilty, and because of that, he faces up to 110 years in prison. Now, in reality, do I think he's going to go to a big, tough prison for 110 years? Probably not. To be honest with you, guys like this probably will get off on some sort of house arrest. Maybe they'll get less, maybe they'll get a lesser sentence, or they'll spend it in a cushy situation. Remember, this is a financial crime, not a violent crime. And for people like this, they effectively go to these white-collar prisons, and they spend almost a pretty cushiony life out of it. Sure, they're forever marred in front of their associates and friends and the public, but I don't think SBF will be living too poorly. Honestly, this is a situation where the government, I think, really wanted to make an example of this guy, and they did. 110 years prison sentence is no joke, up to. And I think no matter what, at the end of the day, what's next for the government is probably looking at other influencers or other CEOs in this space. The government doesn't want crypto to keep crashing, okay? Because if crypto keeps crashing, people lose money. And the government's only sole purpose is to be there for the people. If you can't be there for the people and stop them from getting scammed or stop scammers like this from acting so openly, then you have failed as a government, which in this case, according to FTX and its rise, it does show a level of failure from the government. It even shows some level of corruption. Hopefully going into the future, people like SBF won't be a thing. And if you're an influencer and a guy like SBF comes up and tells you to promote a dogshit coin, run far away. But ladies and gentlemen, karma strikes, karma wins, and, you know, goddamn. Hope this dude enjoys white-collar prison. Goddamn. I'm gonna go out and enjoy some fucking freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mutahar, and yeah, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.